difficult to see, but what you just saw was Travis McMichael raising up his shotgun. That Remington 12 gauge. For absolutely no reason, because where's Mr. Arbery? Look how far Mr. Arbery is. Mr. Arbery's under attack. He's being driven forward by Mr. Bryan in his pickup truck. He's running away from this pickup truck that's already tried to hit him 4 times toward the McMichaels. Travis McMichael is out of the car with his shotgun. And as Mr. Arbery runs toward him, he pulls up the shotgun and points it at him. Mr. Arbery rounds the corner and is shot the first time. And the struggle ensues. How do you know this was an attack on Mr. Arbery? Because Greg McMichael said it perfectly. Mr. Arbery was trapped like a rat. That's what he told the police. Trapped like a rat. Given the sound and what's going on, I'm going to go ahead and see if this will play. We'll see if it works.
Hello. 911, what's the emergency?
I'm not here. There's a black male running down the street.
Where at Satilla Shores?
I don't know what's wrong.
Sir, hello, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what you heard was, stop, goddammit, stop. That's Mr. Arbery coming around the truck. You heard a little sound. That's the shotgun blast. Travis is after the shotgun blast took place. Greg McMichael, at 1:14 p.m., in about 9 seconds, is making that 911 call. Remember, Mr. Albenze called at 1:08. This is 1:14. Greg McMichael has now made the 911 call. This is after they've all been, Mr. Arbery's been attacked, Mr. Arbery's been chased, Mr. Arbery's been yelled at, Mr. Arbery's life has been threatened, all of this. And what does he say? His emergency is, this is the emergency, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out here in Satilla Shores and there's a black male running down the street. That's the emergency. Ladies and gentlemen, here's some still shots so that you can see. There's Travis McMichael pointing the gun at Mr. Arbery. See how far away he is? There's a better view as Mr. Arbery tries to go this way, go that way. Travis McMichael is blocking the street. His truck's in one lane, he's in the other lane. What's that called? False imprisonment. Mr. Arbery then runs this way to get around the truck. Comes over to the side. Comes around. And ladies and gentlemen, it's really important. What you're seeing here are 2 really, really important things. Right here is Travis McMichael's head. Travis McMichael's head. You see the shadow underneath? This is really important. The reason the shadow is important is because it shows Travis McMichael's shadow. It shows this long thing, the Remington 12 gauge shotgun, and it shows Mr. Arbery right here. This truck blocks exactly what took place. But you can see this is where Travis McMichael is. There's the shotgun, and this is where Mr. Arbery is, right there. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, Travis McMichael did not stay on the driver's side of the pickup truck. He didn't stay right here where his dad was in a higher position. That door is open. What did Travis McMichael do with that shotgun? He stepped around that open door and moved toward Mr. Arbery. He's got his shotgun and he's moving toward him to intercept him. He's right here in front of the car, right? And Mr. Arbery comes around and he shoots him. Shoots him like that. First shotgun blast in the front of that car. Went from there to there. Now the Glenn County Police wanted to make sure that they could try maybe and enhance this somehow. So they went ahead and they sent it off. It's a little odd to look at, but it's got some enhancements so you can fully see exactly what's happening. Shotgun goes up. Benze's 911 call was at 1:08, as Greg McMichael stated. But the whole thing started when I saw this guy running down the street. No immediate knowledge of any crime having been committed by Mr. Arbery. And here's the truly, truly tragic part of this whole entire thing. Officer Minshew, who was dispatched due to Mr. Albenze's 911 call, was in Satilla Shores and heard the shots. He was driving about 5 miles an hour down Satilla Drive, looking for the suspicious person. And he heard the shots. The statements of the defendants. One thing I want to be really, really clear with you about, and it's important, is that everything they talk about is what they thought Mr. Arbery was doing that day. That day. Travis McMichael. This is what Travis McMichael says. He runs to the right side of my truck. I stand on the left side of my truck. I'm waiting. Get by. Right? As in passenger side? Passenger side. Yes, sir. Running towards the passenger side. Travis McMichael is telling the cops, oh, I was just waiting for the guy to go by. He either came back to the left side or came to the right, and I'm backing up. I'm telling him to quit. Stop coming at me. Stop coming at me. I see where it's going quick. I got the shotgun in my hand. He comes up. Is it pointed at him at that point? Or, yeah, it's pointed at him. He admits he never stopped pointing the shotgun at Mr. Arbery. But here's the problem. Look at this statement. He either came back to the left side or came to the right, and I'm backing up. I'm telling him to quit, to stop coming at me. Stop coming at me. Travis McMichael's the one who went to the front of the truck. Mr. Arbery comes around the corner, shotgun immediately happens. And what does Travis McMichael say? And this is at the very beginning of his statement. So this is, he's been read his Miranda rights, he's sitting down with the officers, he's talking to them, and this is the very first thing kind of he starts describing it. He comes up to that driveway, squares up with me, I shoot. Squares up with me. Squares up with me. Now don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. During the rest of his statement, Travis McMichael goes on to say that Mr. Arbery attacked him. Okay? He goes on to say that I was acting in self-defense. He goes on to describe his thought process while they were struggling over the shotgun, that Mr. Arbery was going to get the shotgun away from him, and that if Mr. Arbery did, he'd get shot. Okay? But remember, this is 2 hours later at the police station. really important to note, ladies and gentlemen, this. The medical examiner is going to come in here and he's going to talk about his opinion as to the order of shots. The very first shot is to the torso. And Travis McMichael acknowledges that. Yeah, I shot him right in the chest. Here's the thing, he didn't hit him in here. He was holding the gun low. When he shot him, it went right here. And when it went right here into him, it actually came out here. So I want you to think about this. Okay? Front to back, no horizontal deviation. Straight through. But it hit him here and came out this way. His torso's turned. Here's the other thing the medical examiner is going to tell you. He was also shot in the wrist at the same time. There's a shotgun pointed at him. His wrist is a mess, but it's not a fatal injury. There's arterial spurt coming out of it. His heart beats, but he is shot here. The medical examiner is going to tell you that this motion is consistent. Now, he's also going to tell you it's consistent with him trying to grab it, all that kind of stuff too. But he comes around to find Travis McMichael has moved in on him, and he's shot in the wrist, and then shot in the torso, and all the pellets are right here in his back. When you watch the video, you'll note that he's wearing a white t-shirt, and it starts to expand across his chest as he keeps fighting with Travis over the shotgun. He's been shot. Ladies and gentlemen, this was lethal. This killed him. He just didn't fall down and die right then and there. He went ahead and struggled, as you see in the video, with Travis McMichael over that shotgun. There was a second shot. Do you remember seeing the spray and the stuff? The medical examiner doesn't think that hit anything. And then when they come back in view, they're struggling over the shotgun. The next blast is right here. Major artery here. His arm falls like this. It's useless. And he stumbles away because blood has accumulated from this shot into his stomach cavity. You see, a bunch of ribs got broken, and all this blood is flowing into his stomach cavity at this point in time. But it hasn't stopped his heart, and there's arterial spurt coming out. That's how the medical examiner knows that it was this. At the end of the interview by Detective No Hilly with Travis McMichael, he asks him this: do you remember if he grabbed the shotgun at all? Because Travis is all over the place. I want to say he did, but I honestly can't remember. Ladies and gentlemen, there's absolutely no evidence that Travis McMichael went, I shot him because he grabbed my shotgun. That's not what Travis McMichael says at all. This isn't about grabbing the shotgun. I want to say he did, but I honestly can't remember. I mean, me and him, we were face to face the entire time. Also of note, Mr. Arbery had nothing on him. No backpack, no bag, no cell phone, no ID, no wallet, no keys, no gun, no weapon. Mr. Arbery couldn't have even called for help if he wanted to, because he had no cell phone on him. There's absolutely no evidence in this case that anyone was making an arrest. Not one single defendant said, Mr. Arbery had a weapon. Not one single defendant said, Mr. Arbery made any verbal threats or gestures. Mr. Arbery said nothing during the 5 minutes he ran from the defendants. No one, not one single defendant said, I saw him commit the crime of blah, blah, blah today. Mr. Bryan was on his front porch. Travis McMichael was sitting inside his living room. Greg McMichael was in his driveway. What's your emergency? There's a black male running down the street. No one said, I I was making a citizen's arrest today. Not one single person used those words. No one said, I was trying to arrest him for the crime of fill in the blank. No one said that. Not one single defendant ever said, I was trying to arrest him. Or mentioned what crime it is that they actually thought he committed. No one said, I told him that he was under arrest. I mean, come on, how do you arrest somebody? You're under arrest. Put your hands, blah, 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 right? Isn't that how you arrest somebody? You tell them you're under arrest. No one ever said, well, I told the guy he was under arrest for the crime of, whatever crime it is. No one ever said that. But here's what Greg McMichael did say. And this is really important because once again, Greg McMichael's talking about February 23rd, 2020. Is he picking up anything, going through anything? You know, not that I recall. I don't think the guy has actually stolen anything out of there. Or if he did, it was early on in the process. No immediate knowledge of any crime in the past or on that day. I don't think the guy has actually stolen anything out of there. Or if he did, it was early on in the process. Meaning I don't have any information about it. I don't know anything about that. No one said, we have evidence that he stole items off of Larry English's boat back in November of 2019, so we're trying to arrest him for burglary or theft or anything like that. No one ever talks about Larry English's boat during any of these interviews. Really important. Did this guy break into a house today? Did he commit a burglary today? What did he do today that you have immediate knowledge of? That's just it. I don't know, says Greg McMichael. And look at what he does. He says, well, you know, that's what I told what's her name out there. I said, listen, you might want to go knock on some doors because, you know, I'm sure he did something. And if you police officers would just go and investigate that, I'm sure you could figure out what crime it was that he committed today. I'm sure you could. Just go out. I mean, you should investigate. Now that we've killed him, figure out what crime it was that he was committing. I said, listen, you might want to go knock on doors down there because this guy just done something because he was fleeing from. I don't know. He might have gone in somebody's house. He might have gone in somebody's house? No immediate knowledge of anything or any crime that Mr. Arbery committed that day. What you don't hear is, I thought he committed a burglary. What you don't hear is criminally attempting to burglarize this person's house, and I personally saw it, like any of these defendants. That's not what you hear from them. The only time Greg McMichael actually uses the word arrest, and he does use the word, he uses it one time. But anyway, in my mind, there's a good possibility this guy's armed. That was my thought process. And my intention was to stop this guy, so he could be arrested or be identified at the very least. All right, let's pick this apart for a minute. But in my mind, there's a good possibility this guy's armed. That was my thought process. The evidence is Greg McMichael needs to be able to explain to the police why he has a gun and why his son has a shotgun. So this is it. I thought he was armed. I really want you to think about this. The evidence is that Greg McMichael assumed the worst. This unknown stranger, this black man who's running down the street, has a gun on him. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about Greg McMichael's...
I object to getting into argument now. We're running an hour and 15 minutes beyond the hour time limit for opening statements.
Starting to get into some argument here.
Yes, Judge, I will take it down. The evidence is that Greg McMichael assumed the worst when he said, in my mind, there's a good possibility this guy's armed. This unknown person, he assumes, has a gun on him. And yet his driveway decision is to purposefully chase after and confront a man they now claims he thought was armed. His driveway decision. We'll go ahead and pick apart the statement a little more. And my intention was to stop this guy so that, one, he could be arrested. Notice how he didn't say for what. He didn't say so he could be arrested for the crime of this, the crime of that, or anything. I don't think the guy was actually, the guy has actually stolen anything out of there, or if he did, it was early on in the process. Did this guy break into a house today? That's just it. I don't know. But the alternative for, well, my intention was to stop this guy so that he could be arrested, we don't know for what, was, well, he should be identified at the very least. The evidence is that Mr. Arbery is dead because they wanted to know who he was. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're into the home stretch. So what happens with Glenn County Police Department that evening is they go ahead and they interview everybody. Crime scene tech comes to the scene, takes photos, collects the evidence, collects the shotgun. Body cam video captures initial statements. Travis McMichael is transported down to the police station. He's covered in blood. Greg McMichael leaves the scene with the white pickup truck and drives it back to his house so he can change clothes. Mr. Bryan actually has already left the scene by the time the crime scene tech gets there. You won't see his truck in any of the crime scene photos. He was allowed to leave and go home, which he does, and he begins to work on his porch again. And then they realize, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and they ask him to come back to the scene, and then they ask him to please bring his truck to the police station so that they can fingerprint it now. And he did. All three defendants cooperated. Mr. Bryan brought his truck back and showed Detective Lowry, here's where he touched it, here's the fingerprint place. And they fingerprinted it, and it's Mr. Arbery's palm print on the car. They went ahead and collected the shotgun, took photos of Travis McMichael, interviewed everybody, and then all three defendants went home. The next day, they went and collected video from some people like Mr. Olson. Diego Perez had handed over his video on the day of the shooting. And they reviewed all the video. They reviewed the statements. They even kind of went back out and tried to canvass the neighborhood a little bit. And then the investigation stalled. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the investigation stalling has absolutely nothing to do with whether they're guilty or not guilty. You're going to come back with guilty or not guilty based on their actions on February 23rd, 2020. Suffice it to say, the investigation stalled and nothing happened. Until the GBI got involved. Special Agent Richard Dial of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was assigned this case on the evening of May 5th of 2020. At that point in time, he reviewed the Glenn County Police Department file and all the videos. The GBI then went over to interview Larry English. They did a thorough canvass of the neighborhood, went through Satilla Shores, talked to everybody. He obtained other evidence to either confirm or debunk tips that were pouring in, speculation that was pouring in, rumor that they wanted to go ahead and investigate. So they do all of those things. Special Agent Richard Dial then made the arrest of Travis and Greg McMichael on May 8th of 2020 for felony murder. Mr. Bryan, who was completely cooperative, Mr. Bryan was really cooperative. He came in to talk to Special Agent Seacrest. Special Agent Seacrest interviewed him on May 11th and interviewed him again on May 13th. And Mr. Bryan even got in the car with Agent Seacrest and went through a drive through Satilla Shores to show him where he was during this whole entire incident. The problem is by the time we get to May 13th, Mr. Bryan's telling Agent Seacrest, oh, I didn't try and hit him with the car. Arrested Defendant Bryan on May 21st, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendants assumed the worst about Mr. Ahmaud Arbery and made their driveway decisions. They didn't simply follow Mr. Arbery in their truck. There's absolutely no evidence that there was something that kept their white pickup truck from going 5, 6, 7 miles per hour. They didn't just simply follow him. Greg McMichael and Travis McMichael sought to confront Mr. Arbery and took their guns with them to do it. All three of the defendants cut him off with their trucks, or tried to, on Burford. They then used their pickup trucks as lethal weapons. Because when you force somebody off the road, a pedestrian with a pickup truck, you're angling your truck at him, called aggravated assault. All three trapped him like a rat between their two pickup trucks on Holmes. Mr. Bryan coming up from behind, Mr. Arbery running towards Travis McMichael, who's out of the car with the shotgun. Yeah, Greg McMichael's on the phone, finally, with 911 at that point, yes. But Travis McMichael steps out with his shotgun and points it at Mr. Arbery when he's yards and yards away. They worsened the entire situation by threatening to kill him. Stop or I'll blow your fucking head off. That's what Greg McMichael said to...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I hate to interrupt or remove you. This is argument. This is closing argument.
Let's keep it focused on what the state would expect the evidence to show at trial.
Yes, Judge. The evidence that the state expects to show at trial is that Greg McMichael yelled at Ahmaud Arbery, "Stop, or I'll blow your fucking head off." The evidence the state expects to show at trial is this was an attack on Mr. Arbery for 5 minutes, and the only thing Mr. Arbery did was to run away. They assumed that he must have committed some crime that day. "Stop, we want to talk to you," is not an arrest. Ahmaud runs away, they cut him off, try to hit him with the pickup trucks, and the shotgun comes out. Why? Because he wouldn't stop? So they could identify him? So that the police could later investigate what it was that he must have done that day. Ladies and gentlemen, these three defendants committed 4 felonies against Mr. Arbery. And it all started when Greg McMichael saw him running down the street. They committed these 4 felonies in violation of his personal liberty before he finally tried to run around their truck, as you saw in the evidence, and get away from these strangers, complete strangers, who had already told him that they would kill him. And that they killed him. At the end of the presentation of the state's evidence, ladies and gentlemen, the state is going to come back and the state is going to ask you to find them guilty on every single charge in this indictment. Thank you very much.